Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this particular video, we are going to discuss about a recent threat that is coming from Iran, where many strategic experts believe that push comes to shove, Iran can try to close the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very vital oil link, we can say, that allows transportation of oil, gas and various other commodities across the entire region, right from Gulf area to the South Asia and East Asia also, we can say. Now, obviously, it will have a huge implications on a global trade, global maritime trade, and that is why it has caused panic across many different countries, especially those who are either producer or a large consumer of oil assets. So, first of all, if we try to understand the context of this particular issue, we know that since last 5 days continuously, Iran and Israel have exchanged a barrage of missiles against each other's territory. Iran has taken use of drones and ballistic missiles to enter to basically attack and strike Israeli territory, and Israel also have used jet aircraft and missiles largely targeting the top military commanders, nuclear scientists, leadership, as well as the main nuclear centers, enrichment centers of the Iran as such. Now, in this case, because 5 days continuously, last 5 days we have seen continuously the situation is becoming worse and worse, and also to a large extent Iran has suffered a huge damage both in terms of its military capacity, in terms of the political capabilities, as well as civilian casualty also has kept on increasing in the Iran, especially the capital city of Tehran as such. In fact, if we talk about recently Ismail Kosari is a member of the Iran's Parliament Security Commission. So he was talking about with the local journalist, and he has stated that Tehran was seriously reviewing the closure of the Strait of Hormuz if situation does not de-escalate in the coming future. It in turn could restrict trade and impact global oil prices. Now, before moving further, let us try to understand the location of this vital strait, that is Strait of Hormuz. Now, geographically, strait, as you can see, is a term that is used to refer to a narrow water body, as it is visible from this particular image, that is connecting two large water masses. So, similarly, if you take a look at the Strait of Hormuz, it acts as a connecting link, joining link between Persian Gulf, that is in the west, and then you have Gulf of Oman and further Arabian Sea in the east. So as we know that 68% of the crude oil and over more than 50% of the natural gas reserves of the world are located in this West Asian region. For example, the major producer country you have is Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Iran itself, Kuwait, then you have further you can see Iraq. So more than 60-70% of oil production actually occurs here, and that is why this is the biggest producing region, and this is from where most of oil and gas originate and then is transported across the other countries. Especially if you talk about in South Asia, China and India are the two largest consumer of the oil and natural gas in the world. So basically this Strait of Hormuz is providing connectivity between the supplier and consumer of the oil and gas. Now, if you take a look at the Strait of Hormuz, as we can see that on the north of Strait of Hormuz is where you have Iran, and to the south of Strait of Hormuz is the small territory you can see that belongs to Oman as such. So basically, if question is asked that which country do have control over Strait of Hormuz, the direct answer would be Iran in the north and Oman in the south as such. Also, we have to understand that if we take a look at the oil production, if you talk about the crude oil pipeline, so very important crude oil pipeline that we have here called as Abqaiq Yanbu natural gas pipeline, as well as east-west crude oil pipeline. So as you can see, Saudi Arabia, which is the largest producer of oil in the world, we can see it also depends on the Persian Gulf region and further Strait of Hormuz to transport its oil. Apart from that, it also has the possibility of using the Red Sea port, but again, Red Sea port is also witnessing a lot of strikes these days because of the actions of Houthi rebel who are largely operating from the region of Yemen. Yemen is this particular southern country you can see from here. So Houthis and Iran both are strongly supporting each other, and they have carried out a lot of strikes in the Red Sea area. So that is why also traditionally as well as in the present time, Saudi Arabian oil production and oil distribution depends on the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz. Now, why this particular Strait of Hormuz is very important? Again, we can try to look at from the perspective of the data. So as far as the oil is concerned, it is believed that about 20% of the crude oil that is transported across the world uses Strait of Hormuz as a transit route as such. Similarly, if we try to look at the what you can call as the natural gas as such, so in the case of natural gas also, Basically, about 30%, we can say 30 to 33% of the natural gas is supplied by using the Strait of Hormuz as a transit route. So both from the natural gas perspective as well as from the oil perspective, it is a very vital route as such, and that also has created a kind of confusion and trouble in India, because Indian oil and gas companies, largely the companies which import these raw material, then convert them and then convert into process into various different types of petroleum products, they also depend on what we can call as the Strait of Hormuz, and thus any kind of interruption in this particular strait will have a huge repercussions on India as well as China also, we can say. Now, apart from that, if you take a look at the oil prices, obviously many experts across the world believe that if there is a disruption in the oil supply or transit through the Strait of Hormuz, there can be a significant increase in the global energy prices. Obviously, already we are witnessing that due to the Israel's continuous attack against the Iranian territory, oil prices have shot up in the last few days as such, and this trend is expected to continue. And some experts even have suggested that if any kind of blockade is done by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz, it will cause significant disruption, and oil prices can easily go above $100 a barrel, which was in the range of $50-60 a barrel for past few years as such. Already in 2022, we have seen a massive disruption in the oil supply across the world due to Russia's invasion on Ukraine, and then further Russian oil companies and the gas companies have been sanctioned such. So already Iran has been facing severe sanction. That is why its oil is largely being bought by China. And thus, if Strait of Hormuz is also blocked, that will significantly disrupt oil supply from the Gulf countries, other Gulf countries such as Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, UAE and all that. And that is why obviously you can expect the price of oil will shoot up. Not only the price of oil, but also if you understand, if you again take a look at the map here, in the case of any disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, the only possible way how oil can move out is using the Red Sea route, which again is a very long route. And obviously, longer a ship travels, or longer the distance a ship travels, higher will be the shipping cost, we can say. So oil prices obviously will increase, shipping cost will further increase, and that will cause substantial supply delays. That is obvious, because again the ships will have to take a longer route and a longer time will be required for them to reach the destination countries as such. So it is because of this, the strait is significant, as we can see. And as we have discussed before, many of the experts also called Strait of Hormuz as the oil artery of the world. It is very vital link. It is very vital supply lines that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, when it comes to the possibility that how to what extent it is possible for Iran to cause a complete blockade of Strait of Hormuz, so we have taken into consideration two things. First of all, though Strait of Hormuz is not a very wide water body, that means at its narrowest place we can see it is hardly 30 kilometers in width as such. And within that, if we understand that the shipping lane is about 3 kilometers on both sides. But we also have to understand that the larger part of Strait of Hormuz belongs to the Sultanate of Oman. And as far as Oman is concerned, Oman obviously would not want to disrupt its vital supply line as such. So even if Israel tried to carry out blockade, a large part of Strait of Hormuz, it cannot have and cannot exert control or have any kind of influence as such. Second, also we have to understand that though on the map it looks small, it is relatively and fairly large water body. So causing a complete blockade will require a huge naval power that Iran will have to what you can call as use here, that it can also draw ire of United States, because US in the past have attacked Houthi rebels whenever they have tried to disrupt the supply through the Red Sea region. Similar kind of fate we can see being met by Israeli Navy as well, and that can also further create a difficult situation for Iran to come out of the war if US and other allied powers and regional powers get involved here. Third, also we have to understand from the diplomatic point of view, it will not be in the interest of Iran, because if you try to look at the overall what you can call as a statement coming from the Gulf state, especially Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is considered as the arch rival of Iran as such, because both countries represent larger Sunni versus Shia interest. But in the context of Israel's war over Iran, Saudi Arabia also has given a statement, especially the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, has come out in the favor of Iran, and he has said that Israel's attack is against, and it is an illegal attack. It is attack that should be condemned against the brotherly nation of Iran as such. So if Iran start to cause disruption in the oil supply by causing blockade in Strait of Hormuz, obviously we will see withdrawal of support from these Sunni countries or the Gulf countries, and that will also be a diplomatic defeat for Iran as such. So these are the things we have to consider, and basically Iran will have to consider before it can go and cause complete blockade. Now, if you try to look at from the international law point of view, that whether Iran has any right to cause any blockade or control a Strait of Hormuz, the answer is yes, because as per the United Nations Convention on Law of Seas, every country which has a coastline up to 12 nautical miles is where its territorial sea is spread over. And any country over the territorial sea enjoys a complete sovereignty. That means the country can have a complete control over saying that whether it will allow passes of any ship through this area or not. But again, keep in mind, this is just 12 nautical mile, that is about 22 kilometers. And again, on the other side, you have Oman. So unless and until both Oman and Iran decide together to use the right that they have been given under international law to cause a complete blockage of the territorial sea, the Strait of Hormuz, the blockade of Strait of Hormuz can be a very challenging and almost impossible task as such. And it's not that Iran has not tried before. Before also, whenever situation has turned become worse, especially with reference to Israel-Iran or Iran-US relationship, it has tried to exert its influence over the territorial sea of Strait of Hormuz. For example, just few days back, Iranian Navy has captured Israeli ship which was trying to move through this particular area, and also before that they have tried to attack and capture several US flagged ship as well. So such kind of situation, such kind of events we can see unfolding in future as well. Now, also we have to understand that what else can prevent Iran from using the Strait of Hormuz as a choke point and blocking it. So obviously now if you try to understand, Israel and Iran are at war with each other. US and any other allied countries, whether they are member of NATO or not, have not participated and have not shown any kind of interest in direct involvement in war against Iran as such. So if Iran wants to do something, it would largely focus on punishing Israel or creating difficulty for Israel. But again, if you look at the Israel have no dependency. Israel has no dependency on the Strait of Hormuz, what you can call as water body as such, or maritime route as such, because as far as the oil and gas supply of Israel is concerned, most of it is getting from the Mediterranean Sea region. For example, if you can look here, this is Israel shown in the green, and then from Israel you have connectivity to Cyprus, from where you have the oil pipelines. It also is getting oil from Azerbaijan, that is from the eastern Mediterranean region, and then also it gets oil from proposed project you have from the Egypt and all that. So any disruption in the Strait of Hormuz would not have any consequences for Israel, and that also can prevent Iran from using it as a choke point. Iran can only use it in extreme cases if US begin to directly influence and start to militarily involve itself in the war against Iran, and then it would make sense for Iran to use the Strait of Hormuz. But for now, against Israel, it does not have any sense as such. Second, also you have to consider that if you look at the oil supply from Iran, after the imposition of sanction, we can say that majority of oil from Iran is being supplied to China as such. That's we can say that to a large extent, or to almost 90-95% we can say, oil revenue that Iran generates, it comes from China, and 90% of these oil flow to China through the Strait of Hormuz. So disruption again will cause disruption and oil shock in China. China, being the largest consumer of crude oil, natural gas, would naturally want oil prices to remain moderate to low, and it would also not want any kind of disruption, because it will hamper the economic development and activity of China as such, and because China is a firm supporter of Iran. If we try to understand at a global scale, if Iran receives any support or help, or if it has any kind of alliance with any country, it is three major countries, that is Turkey, China and Russia as such. So obviously China would not want any supply shock as far as oil is concerned, or any change in prices, increase in prices specifically, and thus it can also diplomatically put pressure on the Ayatollah Khamenei that they should not take any such measures against the Chinese interest as such. And again, in the last, if Iran indeed goes away goes ahead with disrupting oil supply through Strait of Hormuz, it can bring the wrath of United States, because US would do anything to protect the vital sea lines of communication, to protect the interest of its allies in the Gulf countries such as US, UAE, Qatar and all. And thus we can see US military getting directly involved in against attack against the Iran, and that would also cause trouble for Iranian government as such. So these are the all measures and consideration that Iranian government will have to do before it can decide to take any measures in the Strait of Hormuz. That is all about this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your friends. Let's subscribe to the channel for more social content. Thank you very much.